Hello YouTube, this is Shadow Hero 90 and allow me to welcome you to my show, Sexism in Movies and TV. Now there are three reasons as to why I do this show. The first is because as someone who watches TV, and as a man, I really do think I should be able to watch an actual American show without constantly being offended and without feminism being crammed into everything. The second reason is that a lot of these shows are geared towards a younger audience, and it would really be good if anyone from Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon saw this and actually tried to make a decent role model for boys who's not a white knight, a complete sissy, a doormat, or basically someone who is worthy of the title hero. You know, to keep them from turning out like these pricks. Doormats and losers like these chumps. And my third reason for doing this show is because, I'll just say it, they're aimed towards children. And kids are very impressionable. If you put the wrong stuff in a show for kids, it's gonna send a lot of really messed up messages. Like convincing a boy that basically trying to have anything that's meant to be his is somehow a crime, or wanting time to himself is somehow a crime, or basically a little girl being convinced that she can assault neighborhood boys, younger brothers, and any little kid or male who's weaker than her, and that there will be no consequences. In fact, a lot of these shows do teach girls that they can do whatever they want and consequences do not apply to them. So, with that being said, feel free to enjoy the review. Okay, in this episode of Sexism in Movies and TV, I will be reviewing the Johnny Bravo episode known as The Sensitive Male. Now, it's no surprise that there's a lot of anti-male propaganda in kids' shows. There was a ton of it in Johnny Bravo, especially in the first season. So much that when season 2 rolled around, they kinda had to introduce characters such as, Carl and Pops, because this show had such an anti-male message that said men and boys were such crap that, in all fairness, if season 2 was nothing more than a clone of season 1, then I'm pretty sure Cartoon Network would have gotten a lot of complaints. And I don't mean just complaints about the way Johnny flirts with women. I mean legitimate complaints from fathers who are pissed off at the portrayal of men seen and used in this show. And just for the record, this is what Seth MacFarlane did before he moved on to Family Guy and got his own show. as well as being directed by Butch Hartman, who has created 2 other shows aimed at kids that's literally riddled with anti-man and anti-boy propaganda. The episode starts off with Johnny Bravo flirting with this redheaded woman. The episode starts off with Johnny Bravo flirting with this redheaded woman, and she spits soda in his face. The redhead woman comes across this guy who offers her flowers, and she basically agrees to go out with him, giving her his phone number. Johnny quickly runs up to him and asks him how he got that woman's phone number. He tells Johnny to be sensitive. They parody Schoolhouse Rock, and essentially Johnny gets the crap beaten out of him. Yeah, this episode is gonna parody the Schoolhouse Rock cartoon. And in all fairness, if you wanna attack or parody a educational show for kids, it can be done, and it can be done in a far less sexist manner. Okay, he knows Johnny's name before Johnny even told him his name. He asks how he knew, and then they sing a song about knowing someone's name, when in all fairness, the fact that this guy knew Johnny's name before he even said it is actually kind of creepy. Like, the possibility that this guy could have been spying on Johnny and essentially just using him to get women for himself, or even creepier, might be some kind of supernatural leprechaun or devil or something. Pan into a woman with a dog, and I'm pretty sure you can already tell where this is going. They then do another song about observation. Yeah, basically focusing on the dog. So, yeah, Johnny doesn't have a dog, so technically they would not have anything in common. So this song is basically just a waste of time. Johnny tries it, and he accidentally sends the dog on a very dangerous crash course. The dog falls off the Golden Gate Bridge, only to be caught by the sensitive male. In all fairness, it's hard to believe that this guy wasn't spying on Johnny, and this whole thing isn't just some elaborate plan for him to get women, by making Johnny look bad so he can swoop in and be the big hero. And the woman with the dog agrees to go out with this guy. And when Johnny shows up, he gets attacked by the dog. And now the third girl. Johnny's approach is actually kind of reasonable, but this guy says that if he tries flirting with her, she'll pour her ice cream soda down his pants, and says that he needs to be more feminine. This is kind of a problem with actual mainstream society. It almost seems as if they're legitimately trying to turn decent men into bitches. The sensitive male says Johnny is too masculine, which I kind of find to be a massive problem. I mean, imagine telling any woman that she's too feminine. Something tells me that would majorly backfire. The sensitive male says that women want a man who's in touch with his feminine side. I'm not a woman, and even I know that isn't true. Guys like that usually end up basically spending every Saturday night of their lives alone because they acted like little pussies and blew all their money on chocolates, flowers, and tickets to insert name of movie or play here. I mean, hypothetically, imagine like a Disney movie or something where someone tells the princess she's too feminine. Something tells me that wouldn't go over well, or more realistically, the person telling the princess that she's too feminine would be the story's villain. The sensitive male tells Johnny to think like a woman, and song cue. So anyways, during the song, the sensitive male compares the pussy who blows all his money on flowers and candy, ends up spending Saturday night alone because he couldn't find a date, or the kind of man that people actually assume is gay, to Dr. Jekyll. And ironically, the man who represents Mr. Hyde would actually be the guy who gets the girl. You know, the typical average guy who's not afraid to act like a man and not pretend like he's some pussy-whipped little bitch. The kind who stands up for himself. Doesn't take any crap. You know, the typical macho guy who will stand up for himself, like I said before, but would also be willing to stand up for others. This is the representation of Mr. Hyde in this metaphor, and it paints a very sexist and misandric portrait. I am not laughing. I hated it when I was a kid, and I hate it now. Oh great, Johnny's in more pain. What a friggin' surprise. So, the feminine male puts Johnny in a dress, and he flirts with that girl, because the feminine male told him to think like a woman. Okay, so yeah. Johnny Bravo hits on this woman well dressed like a woman. As you can see, it makes her laugh, but she is not turned on. But these guys are turned on. Johnny Bravo wonders where he went wrong. I'd say basically having a massive ego is where he went wrong. Normally, if he pulled his routine without the ego, he'd probably get the girl in any episode. Okay, this is the final woman to appear in the episode. The one who's throwing the coins in the wishing well. Okay, the sensitive male here says calling her hot mama would not win her over, but instead he should show her some respect, which is ironic. This is literally the most ironic line in any cartoon aimed at kids, because even adult animation has the "You Have to Respect Women" episode. Whether it be Raising Gazorpazorp from Rick and Morty, or the episode that introduced Amazonia in Futurama, or Homer's Night Out in The Simpsons. They basically say you all have to respect women, when in reality the men did next to nothing wrong. It is unbelievably hypocritical and ironic that they would say this in a cartoon aimed at kids. It's absurdly ironic, especially when you think of all the female characters who are inherently disrespectful to every male character on their show. Like number 86 from Kids Next Door, Mandy, the Squirrel Scouts from Camp Lazlo, the Alien Amazons from Rick and Morty episode Raising Gazorpazorp, or if you want to count live action, Jennifer Moseley from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. It is ironic, because we get episodes like that, and we get episodes like the sensitive male from Johnny Bravo. We never, and I can legitimately state this, we never get an episode that involves female characters learning to appreciate and respect the male characters around them. We get episodes like Raising Gazorpazorp, Homer's Night Out, or The Sensitive Male, but we never get a legitimate show or an episode of one where the point is that a bunch of females need to learn how to respect men. But that's something I can save until the end of this review. Okay, finally, last song out of this piece of crap. He basically sings about manners, which I'd like to point out that there are probably a lot of guys who don't have manners who get tons of women, but yeah, that is probably true. And believe me, I've met a lot of women who have no manners whatsoever and really need a good punch in the face. Oh look, it's that one thing that women demand from men but refuse to give in return. You know, that one thing that starts with the letter R? Something you have to earn and can't demand, like a spoiled little brat. So she puts a pig nose on Johnny, calling him a pig, which is completely hypocritical since I'll just say it, every woman in America, and possibly on the planet, is a good-for-nothing parasite. I said it. They leech off the men around them, and eventually, if the man is put through a tragedy where he cannot provide, or loses all his money for some reason, or resources, she dumps him. You know, it is kind of ironic that in an era where censorship was at its lowest, this got a fucking pass. If any company made a cartoon telling women to respect men and called the typical skinny girl who's a whore and gets a lot of men a good-for-nothing parasite, I'm pretty sure it would have never seen the light of day. Okay, Johnny Bravo does exactly what the sensitive male told him to. This bitch throws a coin in the wishing well, and Johnny gets attacked by Buffalo, which was that cunt's doing, instead of just telling him that she's not interested. What a cunt. So anyways, Johnny finally cracks and says he's going back to being himself and not a sensitive piece of shit that in the real world no woman would find appealing in any way. And you know, I'm pretty sure women in the real world would really like a lot of these compliments Johnny Bravo throws at women. The sensitive male then reveals that he's a liar, and nothing he said or did he actually meant. He basically admitted that he just acts polite around women and respectful, but in reality does not mean it, and admits that he would tell a woman that he could turn straw into gold if that would make her date him. No, wait, I was wrong. There was one more song, but this one's actually more realistic. As in, women are, well, this correlates more to the real world, but women are essentially giant children who just, well, I'll be blunt. If you tell them whatever they want to hear, they'll go along with it. Tell a woman that she deserves free birth control for being a woman, and she'll go along with it. Tell a woman that she's entitled to free respect, a well-paying job, and a successful relationship without putting in any effort and doing absolutely nothing to deserve it. Just tell her she, well, deserves those things for being a woman, and she'll go along with it. Tell college girls in this case that they can go blackout drunk and say that they were raped if they happen to have sex and get pregnant, and they will go along with that too. It does not matter how absurd. If it's something a woman wants to hear, she will believe it, regardless of how stupid, illogical, and just plain goddamn retarded the statement or concept even is. Okay, after admitting that he's a fraud, the sensitive male then says to fake it. Basically telling Johnny to fake it and he can get any woman on the planet. So, after basically the actual last song, I was wrong twice. This is a parody of the Schoolhouse Rock show. Johnny brought those 3 women there who apparently overheard the song where he admits he's a fraud, and this leads to one of the episode's biggest fuck-ups. The 3 women used as examples then tie this guy up as if they're gonna eat him and cannibalize him, and yeah, that's kind of the episode's one of its really big fuck-ups. In an actual good ending to the sensitive male, we'd see Johnny Bravo be the one to beat this guy up. After all the musical abuse, getting attacked by a dog, after being dressed up like a woman and humiliated in public, a constant barrage of insults, and being attacked by a stampede of magically conjured up buffalo, This episode shoots itself in the foot by not having Johnny to be the one to beat the tar out of this lying creep. Instead, it's the example women who get that privilege, and all Johnny Bravo gets as a form of payback is looking at the camera and saying, "What a jerk." In all fairness, here's a good ending to the sensitive male. Johnny Bravo, after finding out that this guy had been lying to him and using him to get women, beats the crap out of this little bald creep, and then all 4 women instantly fall in love with him. The end. Episodes like The Sensitive Male, I'll just say it, The Sensitive Male is the Johnny Bravo equivalent to The Splinter, or One Course Meal, or Everyone Knows It's Bendy. And I'm pretty sure that since episodes like this one painted such an insulting portrait of men in general, that Cartoon Network acknowledged that this was sexist, and that's why in later seasons we got episodes like Lodge Brother Johnny, The Hansel and Gretel Witch Project, or Panic in Jerky Town, because good episodes of Johnny Bravo do exist. And those were examples of 3 really good ones. Hell, if anything, that's why they created Carl and Pops. They needed a character. Well, they needed characters that their idiot lead could interact with in a way where it would be funny and at the same time would not insult it wouldn't insult any little boys who are watching, or put the idea in the fathers' heads that maybe they should call the Cartoon Network and complain. Before I go into how an episode where female characters learn to respect and appreciate men could actually work, let me just say that not even a decade after The Sensitive Male was released, Drawn Together, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, Drawn Together parodied Schoolhouse Rock, and they did it in a way better manner. A Schoolhouse Rock parody is not something that should be that easy to fuck up. All you gotta do is basically copy the way they talk, sing, talk while singing, and throw in a stupid, shitty, and out-of-place moral. And the moral also has to be completely misplaced and stupid, like, off the top of my tongue, recycle just to put the garbage men out of work, so they'll be forced to get a new job. Or be kind to animals so they won't attack you or eat out of your garbage. Something stupid like that. A dumbass, misplaced moral that makes no sense. Okay, now, like I said, I'm going to give you some examples of shows that could actually teach the message to young girls that they should respect and actually appreciate the men and boys in their lives. And this is how I would do it. If you grew up in the 90s, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the character Minerva Mink. She was removed because Warner Brothers thought she was too inappropriate. She'd fly perfectly now, but that's beside the point.
If anything, Warner Brothers should give her her own spin-off and play it up as a gender reverse Johnny Bravo, where she dates all these guys, but every relationship won't go past, well, 24 hours. That concept alone would be a pretty good, somewhat antithesis to Johnny Bravo. And in such, you'd probably do an episode of having her try to date someone smart, it backfires, and then have Minerva try to get back at her ex through a whole bunch of typical shady ways by dating someone even worse to insult them, stuff like that, but it all fails because all these guys are basically smart enough to see what she's trying to pull, and they don't fall for it. And these would also be the kind of male characters who would have enough self-respect not to basically date a tramp just so she can get back at her ex. The other is an idea that could work for Rick and Morty. Basically, have Rick and Morty and Summer go to a medieval level planet, during a point where Summer is being a bitch. Then take Rick and Morty out of the episode because they have to leave for some insert reason. It can be any reason. And Summer still continues to act like a bitch. Remember, this is the teenage girl who kicked her 14-year-old brother in the nuts. So anyways, as the episode goes through, Summer ends up being forced into being a housemaid and has her cell phone taken away, and actually learns to appreciate Rick, Morty, and Jerry. Well, basically, she learned that when they eventually rescue her. That would instantly redeem Rick and Morty for the episode Raising Gazorpazorp. And if Warner Brothers ever does a Minerva Mink spinoff, they should give her a feminist arch-enemy. A fat pig who thinks she can do with her brain what Minerva can do with her looks.